Hello students, today we will be looking into a new topic inside this Unit 4, that is Warehouse and Transportation. As we all know, the digital world has taken over mankind and all the economies in the world, so much so that every industry today has been digitized in one or the other way. And there are several industries that are heavily influenced by digital technologies like media, finance, insurance, followed by chemical industries, hospitality, agriculture. Likewise, wholesale trade, warehouse, transportation are also not left out. These are also our topic of interest because we are looking at logistics, and in this area we are going to bring about this new topic today, which is known as e-logistics. Now let us understand e-logistics through separating it from different parts that is mixed up within these words. So let us first understand what is logistics, then we'll come down to understand what is e-logistics. And there is another word that is lingering on all of you, which you people would have used it one or the other time in your life for purchase of the goods or services, which is known as e-commerce. These three words are linked to each other, so let us understand the meaning behind these three. Okay. On the left hand side, we mentioned logistics. By now, all of you would have been exposed sufficient number of times to this definition, and you will have definitely a fair idea about what this word means. However, looking at the applicability of this word in the context, let us go through it again. Logistics is nothing but a part of a supply chain. We call supply chain management. It's a process that involves planning, implementation, controlling the efficient and effective flow, followed by storage of goods and or services. Definitely we know that services cannot be stored, they are intangibles. So here we are looking at effective flow of services. And there is also something else flowing along with it, that is the information. Information can be from the point of origin to the point of consumption, that is towards the customer, or from the consumption point to the point of origin. And logistics is defined in terms of flow of goods and services followed by flow of information, all with a single aim to meet customers' requirement and provide customer satisfaction. Now, since we all knew logistics, we will not waste much of the time there. We will now come down to what is this E word attached to the logistics. Here, instead of e-logistics, the complete right word is e-commerce logistics. Look at this word on the top. So let us understand what is e-logistics. E, we all know, stands for electronics. So e-logistics or e-commerce logistics is nothing but when you take the logistics definition and attach the application of internet-based technologies to this definition, the logistics becomes e-logistics or e-commerce logistics. So now let us remove the word e-commerce from e-commerce logistics to understand that it is a process. E-commerce is a process of transacting business via computer using electronic networks. It's a very simple definition. So now we have broken each part of the definitions to understand thoroughly and conceptually what does e-commerce logistics and e-commerce means, which is the topic that will be covered today. Now, we'll go for understanding a very clear definition which is given by different authors in different texts and different literatures with their own perspectives. The first definition we have already gone through in the previous slide, which is e-logistics is defined as application of internet-based technologies to the traditional logistics process. And there we also understood once again what is logistics. The second definition is very interesting. It says it is web-based applications and services dealing with efficient transportation, efficient distribution, and efficient storage of the products along the supply and demand chain. Well, we'll look at the statement once again and thoroughly try to ascertain what does this definition actually mean. It's a web-based application. We know it's electronics, internet-based technology, and it's a service. It deals with efficient transport, distribution, and storage. That is your warehouse. Now, let us see why these three words are attached with the word efficient. Traditionally, or in the olden days, we have seen how warehouse and transportation processes and activities used to be conducted. Operational indicators were very few in order to understand the efficiency. And as slowly operational indicators were developed, many more matrices came into the market where people started looking at efficiency in transportation and warehousing, which is the storage part. So, the idea behind reaching the goods quickly, timely, in the same fashion, without any breakage, without any spillage of the product, damages to the product, and in the same quantity at the time required by the customer became the norm of every company in the world. And that was the new mantra or new definition of efficiency. That means any company which wanted to achieve it started exploring ways to reach their goals and objectives. And this was done through digital technologies. That means today there are several companies who are using digital technologies in transportation, in warehousing, and in distribution to varying levels. So, should all the company be known as e-logistics or e-logistics enabled companies? Well, yes, the answer is because e-logistics is not something which says that right from top to bottom everything to be digitized. Only then you are named as e-logistics. E-logistics is an evolutionary process of any company where they try to slowly amalgamate, bring together all the activities and processes under one roof and give a digital overtone to it. And that's how they become finally known as e-enabled or technology-enabled or e-logistics. I hope that is clear. And that's why lastly we attach the name along the supply and the demand chain. So, once again, it's efficient transport, efficiency distribution, efficient warehousing. Both are made efficient through web-based applications and services from end to end. That's why we wind up the definition using supply and demand chain. So, we'll go to the last definition, which is a very simple one line, very holistic in nature. It's IGI Global that has defined it. And each country has defined e-logistics in its own way. I'll provide you a link. We can see the different definitions in Europe and in other countries, how they have defined it. E-logistics here is a collection of new practices, logistics practices for the internet. And that says about everything. So looking at the previous definition and this definition, you'll be able to now clearly understand that when any activity across the logistics process. Only logistics that we saw in the previous slide is technology enabled. We say it's in the evolutionary process of e-logistics. So now we will understand what is logistics. Logistics with an E in it. So e-logistics basically is a back-end process. That means customer, which can be yourself as a buyer of a product like a mobile phone or a laptop or a garment or a sneaker. We call it B2C. Or the customer can be B2B. It can be any other company buying some voluminous goods for their production process in a factory. Yes, that is known as B2B. Both these customers place orders through a front-end screen, which we call as a web screen or a website. But once he places the order, whether it's a company or an individual, what happens behind that click is all constituting e-logistics. So that's why we call it as a back-end process. It is required to get an order. It is required for about warehousing, about delivery, about transportation, and lastly, customer interaction. When we talk about customer interaction, activities involving customer calls, receiving, handling, trying to reply to them satisfactorily, or putting up the matter to the concerned authorities to solve the issues that is faced by the customer are all known as handling customer calls. Another part that has been one of the focus of most of the e-logistics company is enabling their activities to be tracked by the customer. Whether it's a B2B or a B2C. Yes, even a simple company like a courier company or big companies like Government Indian Post, when you take a registered post and you get a number, you can track the registered post, its movement from the point of origin till the point of destination. This is what we call as tracking the order status. Followed by arrange for returns. Customer interaction can happen whether it is through a telephone call or through internet. Well, while tracking the order status, you really don't have to speak to somebody on phone or you don't have to meet any company representative, but we still call it customer interaction because the customer is interacting with the company to get some information, and this is not happening physically or even face to face. It is happening through certain web-based technologies. So e-logistics constitutes customer interaction, and one of the major factors that leads to customer satisfaction is how customer interaction is effectively handled by the company. So it is a back-end process. Once again, it is required to get an order. It is involving warehousing, delivery and transportation, followed by customer interaction. So next part is, well, all these activities become so voluminous and very intricate, and there's a lot of ambiguities and uncertainties here and how best and efficiently to manage. It is often handled by different set of companies. Warehousing is handled by different set of company, transportation is handled by different set of company, and customer interaction can be also outsourced. Yes, you may have got calls after you purchase the product about the quality. Well, is this always the company that is calling you? Think about it. It may be handed down to a company which is not has got any link with the manufacturer. So that's why we say it is handled by different vendors. Third, e-logistics is nothing but it implies the use of information communication technology. It is more or less the definition that we have already gone through, and it supports the execution and provision of logistics. varying logistics activities. Now, let us see the different words being used to relate to this single word. That means anywhere in any magazine or newspaper or literature or even a foreign magazine, each country, each different businesses uses this name differently. That's why we have to know that each one is not different, and let's not waste time looking into content with each of the new word that we face. No, it is all same. It is electronic logistics, is e-logistics, internet enabled logistics, e-business logistics. They are all been used interchangeably. And finally, e-logistics acts as a supportive delivery process for fulfilling online e-commerce orders, which is very, very important for us, because eventually as a customer, you as an individual or a B2B, we always call this industry as e-commerce. What happens at the back end is e-logistics. Now let's understand the structure in the operations of e-logistics. Well, all of these operations, once again, I remind you, is backend. The figure that is in front of you is divided into two parts, left hand side and the right hand side. So let's go through it. What is the meaning of an order management? So, a logistics manager has to handle the two different processes that is constituting an order management. Let's see the left hand side. It says order processing. The right hand says shipments planning. Now, for a moment, you can ignore all the arrows that is below order processing and shipment planning, because the arrows might lead to certain confusion at the moment. But as we keep understanding each and every part of this model, we will then attach the arrows back and see what is the meaning behind these arrows. Let's take the order processing part that is on the left hand side. It constitutes small boxes of activities. Almost 6 of them are there. These boxes, square boxes, and below is a rectangular box. Let's look at the square boxes. Order processing includes order entry. Once we receive the order, the entry has to be made in the system. It constitutes inventory movement, that is moving the inventory from one place to the other, whichever place to whichever other place is not mentioned, but it is just mentioned as movement. It involves procurement from a vendor, that is from an outsider. You can call him supplier. It can always also, not always, but also include production. Again, it's put in a bracket as vendor, that is an outsider, not from the company. It also includes warehousing, which can be company owned warehouse, or again, it can be outsourced. That is why we put it in a bracket. And finally, it involves packaging. So, there is order entry, there is inventory movement, there can be procurement or there can be production. Then there is a warehousing need, and finally packaging. So now we'll bring back these arrows. For a moment, I told you to forget all these arrows. Order processing can involve various activities like order entry, inventory movement, or procurement. When we talk about procurement, look at this arrow that goes down from procurement directly to packaging. What is the meaning of that? That means here the company has purchased a finished goods once it received an order. You can understand it more better when we talk about various models in e-commerce. So the goods are procured from an outsider and packaged, and order filling and completion is carried out. Let us look at the first part. Once the order entry is made, if the goods are not available, then it needs to be produced, and a similar production requirement or slip is sent to the vendor for producing the goods. Once the order entry is made, we also see a right hand arrow with inventory movement. It is inventory movement. Inventory movement is moving the inventory from maybe a vendor's location or from a location inside a warehouse to the designated packing area. So, this involves where the goods has to be stored, that is in your warehouse. Warehouse again, movement depends on the warehouse. If it is owned by the company, it is inside the company premises, or it is at the outskirts of the city, far away from the factory, but it is still owned by the company, or it is owned by an independent entity where the company, if it is placing an order for production through a vendor, then the vendor will produce the goods and send it to this independent warehouse or the company's warehouse. And finally, it leads to packaging. It's a complex web of arrows that gives you information each time you look at the connectivity of these arrows. That means these arrows signify how complex the order processing stage is and how comprehensive is this picture that is in front of you, which encompasses various situations and different contexts in which order filling and completion takes place. Now, once the order filling and completion has happened, now we look at the right hand side, which is your shipment planning. Now, shipment planning is all about looking at the transportation part. That's why we don't have the word transportation at all mentioned on the left hand side. So, transportation once again can be company owned, or this picture considers that most of the transportation done by the companies is through a 3PL, that is third party logistics provider. So, it can be a courier company based on the quantity, the size of the product and the value of the product, the sensitivity or the fragility of the product. You can use a courier or you can use a logistics company and use any mode of transportation. We have covered all the different modes of transportation to send the goods. So this service provider, whether it's a courier company or the third party logistics company, have to now look at and plan with the e-logistics manager of the company about the mode, that is the type of transportation, along the route selection, when the goods has to be delivered in what quantity to which customer and where is the location. And third, if at all, documentation part. When I use the word if at all, please understand documentation is very essential in every delivery process. But some documents are very important when we go for shipments which include exports and imports. So dispatching documents becomes very crucial. Otherwise, without the documentation, the customer cannot even release the goods. It is not like your e-commerce product that you buy like a laptop, where the laptop comes directly to your home. You have to just sign a piece of paper and collect it. And what it gives you is a bill. That's the most we can provide you. And finally, this is delivered to the customer. So there are two parts here in order management. One is order processing, other is shipment plan. Now, let us elaborate the picture that we saw in the previous slide. So we continue with the same topic here with title E-Logistics Structure and Operations. So, a proper structure and operation, which together we call it as an infrastructure for online delivery of goods, is very, very essential so that customers are satisfied with timely receipt of the goods in the quantity and the quality as they had specified at the time of placing the order. So there are various activities in order to achieve that satisfied customer, and this also throws an insight into how e-logistics companies work. So there are about 9 different steps written here, which will be elaborated one by one, and those 9 steps or 9 important elements for how e-logistics works constitutes order processing, inventory management, order execution, shipping, tracking and tracing, payments, transaction security, L. And what happens if there is order postponement, cancellation or substitution, and finally the reverse material flow, famously known as reverse logistics. So all are these 9 essential elements that one needs to understand to get an insight into how e-logistics works. So let's start with the order processing system. The order processing system is like a backbone of the entire logistics structure and operations. It plays a very critical role because the system is nothing but the standards set up by the company to cater to customer needs, his requirements and dissatisfaction. So, the order processing system basically commences from the time the customer sits in front of the web page and browses through for selecting his preferred item. After he selects the item, the order processing system provides him a facility to check the details of the product. Sometimes it comes along with it. With this, the price and other details that he may be even looking for. Along with is also given the total amount. And this total amount is what is very crucial, because the amount should also include the place where he wants the product to be delivered, and delivery or transportation charges should also be factored. That means there are certain standards at the back end which is already set up by the company given the preference of the customer. It also includes taxes. So calculating both the taxes and the transportation charge, a total amount is always reflected on the web page. After the customer confirms the order based on the quantity he wants to take, whether he is okay with the quality and the total amount, including the delivery charges that is displayed, the site directs the customer to a payment module. In this payment module, there is a preference or an option for either making a cash payment or a credit payment, which we will discuss very shortly. And once he executes this stage, the order will be processed accordingly. And that is basically all that encompasses the order processing system. Now, we will head on to the next element, that is the inventory management. Inventory management plays a very crucial role in ensuring the adequate availability of inventory in the warehouse. The goal of inventory management primarily is to see that the goods are available no sooner than the customer orders it, and looking at the time he wants to wait for the goods to be received, the items in the warehouse has to be packed and dispatched immediately so that the timely delivery of the goods is practiced. Now, in inventory management, there are different business models that companies pursue, based on which the way they manage their inventory differs drastically. And this can be understood shortly when we look at the business models of the logistics or e-logistics companies. Now, based on those particular business models, the firm integrates the inventory management system along with the order processing system and thereby the fulfillment system. Each one is connected to each other and cannot be set off mutually exclusive. For that to understand, let us see what are the different models pursued by the companies. The first one that is in front of you is a marketplace model, and the second is the inventory-led model. So, let us see one by one. What's the marketplace model? In marketplace model, the e-retailer does not hold the inventory himself. That means the inventory is held by some other group or entity. So what does the e-tailer do? E-tailer only provides the interface or all the facility that we spoke in the web facilities provided in the order processing system, where the customer can come and select the product and the given alternatives along with the different prices. In the marketplace model, he doesn't have the inventory. So, packaging and quality checks are carried out by sellers. Those sellers are not the e-retailers. And then the items are sent to storage in the warehouse of the e-retailer or directly shipped to customers from the seller's warehouse. So, in the marketplace model, the company or the e-retailer does not hold the inventory, whereas packaging requirements and the quality checking requirements as soon as the customer places the order is done by the seller, and the seller either directly sends the goods to the customer at the given address or he sends them to the warehouse of the e-retailer. And at the warehouse of the e-retailer, which we also call it as, if you recall, distribution centers, it gets directly shipped to the customers immediately. However, the share of the marketplace model where an e-retailer does not hold the inventory is declining, because when the seller directly sends the goods to the customer, he will always claim that he has done adequate quality checks. But companies have realized that there is a lot of issues raised by the customers when they receive the goods through this model in terms of product quality, higher returns, pilferages, and even wrong products being sent to customers. And for this reason, many e-retailers want to avoid, because eventually it is the e-retailer's name that is in front of the customer, and the customer doesn't care about the name of the seller or the seller company who has sent him the product directly. So, the another model is inventory-led model. In an inventory-led model, inventory is purchased. That means the goods are in possession and ownership of the e-retailer, and it is stored in the warehouse. This model ensures that e-retailer has absolute control on all the processes from the inventory management till the order fulfillment. That means till the goods reaches the customer, in the quality and the quantity and within the time required. But this model requires high investments, and there are always inventory risks associated with this. So this completes the order processing system and the inventory management. Now we'll go to the third element, that is order execution. The order execution consists of certain steps. Once the order is confirmed and payment based on the payment terms made by the company, whether it's a B2B or a B2C, the order instruction is sent to the inventory division. The inventory management system, based on that, the inventory division checks the availability of the items, the quality, the quantity, and the product code. This product is then retrieved from the warehouse and then forwarded for packaging. This is followed by the next step, that is known as shipping. In shipping, the activity that is involved are organizing transportation and seeing that the mode of transportation in no way delays the delivery of the goods. Many companies, many e-retailers have been employing third-party logistics company or courier company. So, can we safely say that the transportation activity is outsourced? Of course. The choice of this carrier depends upon speed of delivery, the time, the distance, and as when does the customer really need that product? How quickly? The fifth element now comes in the system is tracking and tracing. Every shipment that leaves the warehouse has got a unique identification number. For example, when you buy something from Amazon, you get the receipt which is pasted on the box. You can look at the identification number. Through this number, Amazon company can track every detail of your shipment. This unique identification number will help in tracking and tracing the product. So, there we require a barcoding system, and this is also linked to the satellite communication that will help track the consignment, and customers can safely know at what date and what time exactly will the product be reaching his destination. Next is your payment terms. As we spoke in the order processing system, every retailer has got a payment gateway attached to his interface. All businesses, all e-businesses have this, which is essential for processing the online payment. Now there are various methods of payments for the customer, or the company wants to enable it for the customer for his or her convenience. And JP Morgan, a consultancy firm and a financial behemoth, have tried to compile a comprehensive list of different payment gateways through which India is making payment. So we have listed here the bank transfer, cards, others payment terms, digital wallet, and cash. So if you see here, when we say card or digital wallet, I hope you can recall that card means here both credit card and debit card. This is followed by bank transfer. You can use an EFT by opening an online account. This is followed by digital wallet, that is through UPI. You can use Paytm, you can use Google Pay, or cash on delivery. That is the last part, that is cash. So if you see here, India predominantly, there is an increase in the use of card and digital wallet in payment. The seventh part is your transaction security. As a customer, definitely you don't want your information and your details, maybe of a bank account or your telephone number or your email ID, to go to some irrelevant unknown persons. For this reason, providing privacy in transactions to the buyers and sellers are one of the most important elements of the structures and operation. The features embedded in the system are such that those stakeholders can be safe, because there is no way of any online theft, there is no hacking, stealing customer information, and the system sees to it that such a thing is prevented. The eighth element is what happens if the customer chooses to cancel the order. Even that system has to be incorporated, in the sense, if the customer has to return the product due to many reasons. One is he found the quality not matching with what he saw on the web, or when he got the product, maybe directly shipped by the seller or through the e-retailer, he found that there are certain defects. Now, as soon as the customer finds there are defects, he may want to return the product, and the company should have system to take back the purchases. So return online purchases, shipping back, returned in the store or company, arrangement for the courier pickup are all the activities involved in this stage. And finally, reverse material flow. Procedures and standards should be developed such that the purchased goods by the customer is going in a reverse flow. That is, now it goes back from the customer to the place of origin. That may be a retailer for many reasons. That is product returns, repairs and maintenance. So point 8 and point 9 are quite similar, but however, we see here that in point 8, most of the time the retailer sends back the damaged product directly to the manufacturer and claims a rebate, which is then passed on to the customer.
Well, the final part is reverse material flow. Reverse material flow is those activities that when purchased by the customer and used, he abandons it. It has to go and fall in the landfill, and this creates pollution. So, a new domain of trying to understand how the product that is used and discarded by the customer can be put back into the economy for some active usage is the main aim of reverse material flow. However, there are certain bifurcation to this reverse material flow also, where purchased goods traveling from the consumer back to the retailer due to many different reasons, such as product returns, repairs and maintenance are also a part of this study.
Based on our previous discussion, when we are studying the logistic structure and operation, we discussed that various companies has different business model and the firm integrates the order processing system as per the inventory models and fulfillment systems. So, we have already seen the different models which the companies pursue, and now we will look into the order fulfillment process and its importance. So let us first understand what is the meaning of an order fulfillment. Order fulfillment is a process, and every process has an activity. Like that, order fulfillment is a set of activities that is defined by its processes, and it is required to ensure that the customer gets what the customer wants when the customer wants it. For this reason, the order fulfillment system involves an integration of people, processes, and technology to ensure customer satisfaction. Why it is so important? So let us see what every e-retailer strives for. Every e-retailer wants maximum number of customers to log on to their website and purchase products. That's how they can make good revenue and thereby good profits. And in order for having satisfied customers, they need to execute an order perfectly. So let us understand what is the meaning of a perfect order. A perfect order is the one that is delivered complete with all the items ordered in the quantity requested by the customer. It includes delivery on time as per the customer's request date. This is followed by delivered with complete and accurate documentation along with the packing slips, bill of lading if required, and invoices. And lastly, when it is delivered in a perfect condition with correct configuration of the product and with absolutely no damage, and if there is a need, it may also require installation, so it should be faultlessly installed. These 4 parameters define a perfect order. So now, let us look at the order fulfillment process. The order fulfillment process has 5 primary steps. First one is receiving inventory, followed by inventory storage. Third is the order processing. Fourth is shipping. And the fifth one is returns, if any, by the customer, returns processing. So, the first step, receiving inventory, includes inspecting the goods as soon as it reaches your distribution center or the warehouse for its quality. Quality inspection must be thoroughly carried out and checked wherever and however required. This is followed by recording, what we call as inventoried, recording the exact quantity received, and then placing those goods on the shelves, of course not for the display, but such that it can be easily retrieved. For that, you require barcoding, and essential barcoding is pasted on each of the product or the boxes or the kind of packaging in which the material arrives and placed in the shelf in the fulfillment center. Of course, here may I also reiterate, fulfillment center is another name for a warehouse. The stage number 2, we talk about inventory storage. Inventory storage is when the goods arrive at the warehouse or the fulfillment center or the distribution center, it needs to be inventoried. The meaning of inventoried is it has to be recorded completely with all the details, and the specification should be put on records. It can be either computerized or a physical record as the need arises and required. After making those records, either the goods are immediately dispersed to your customers or the next stage of the supply chain. In this case, we call such places as distribution centers, or it is sent to the storage. Followed by this inventory storage, as we know, is also known as warehousing. The third part is your order processing. Order processing includes a packing slip that is issued with certain instructions. The slip consists of the product name, the items included along with that product, if any, the quantity, and the quality of that product. Based on the packing slip that is received, picking and packing process starts. That means using the barcode, the goods are picked from the shelves, and based on the required packing parameters for that particular product, all products are not packed in the same fashion. Some may be sent in a loose plastic, or some may be folded and put in a hard box. This is carried out, followed by the order is then made ready to ship with proper labeling, with address of the customer and other details. These activities for order processing can be done manually by some companies in their warehouses, or modern warehouses. Normally these things are automated. In fact, even selection of the product for the packaging purpose is done through automated robots. That means it can easily identify based on certain numbering system where the product is in the shelf, and the materials required for packaging can also be selected through automated robots. Such is the level of automation. The fourth point is the shipping, and this is the stage where the order would be packed and labeled and ready for shipment and transported to the intended destinations. It can be done either through sea shipment or through air shipment or road or rail or through courier. The final portion of your order fulfillment process that is required for a perfect order, which is the importance of the order fulfillment, is returns processing. This has been one of the most emerging field of studies and also known as reverse logistics. Returns processing involves customer returning the goods either to get a refund or he will exchange with other goods. The returned goods undergo checks. If they are sorted, they are either restocked or returned to the vendor or manufacturer. So, this entire order fulfillment process can be completed by the company, which we call as in-house, or it can be outsourced to a third-party logistics provider. So, hereby we complete the order fulfillment process. Having understood the order fulfillment process, now let us go towards understanding what a fulfillment center is all about. So, if we see today, e-commerce in India has been growing at a very rapid rate, and thus warehousing requirements are going to be double in the coming days. This statement is done by one of the leading consultant firms. What does that mean? That means the requirement for storage and material handling will increase. That is, increase in the fulfillment center's demand. So, what a fulfillment center is all about? Let's discuss that now. A fulfillment center works towards the entire order fulfillment process, as we have discussed. These includes activities which we already discussed, like inventory, picking, packing, labeling, dispatch, returns. Fulfillment centers also store items for short periods before the product is shipped out. And they work round the clock. They don't close, so that the orders are timely delivered to the customer. Modern fulfillment centers are equipped with highly automated, technology-driven packing, picking, packing and shipping process. And these days, the design of or the construction of the fulfillment centers constitute very efficient building systems. That means they are equipped with solar panels so that the reliance on other source of energy is reduced. And these buildings are designed for net water and sewage treatment plant. Net water is all about how a company is able to balance the loss of water with water replacement through either protection or conservation or restoration or enhancement. Modern fulfillment centers are becoming a very inclusive place of work, and it is kept in a very hygiene conditions with state-of-the-art technology, and the place is a very nice location for educated class to pursue their careers in. With this increasing demand, companies must be able to quickly add space and staff for the warehousing requirement. So companies either manage fulfillment on their own or outsource the function to a third party. So now we will go through about the e-commerce business. As we have stated the definition previously, e-commerce is a process of transacting business via computer using an electronic network. Now, it is important to see e-commerce because this word is used in various journals, magazines and newspapers in very different paradigms. So collectively, if we see, e-commerce can be seen as a communication paradigm, it can be seen as a business process, or it can be seen from a service paradigm. So let us see what is the meaning of each of this. We all know what is an e-commerce, but what do you mean by e-commerce in a communication perspective? E-commerce business is all about delivery of information, products or services by electronic means. If we want to see e-commerce through a business process perspective, then e-commerce is the application of a technology towards automation for business transactions. Finally, if we want to see e-commerce from a service perspective, then it is the business that enables cost cutting at the same time increasing the speed and the quality of service delivery. It is true for both the suppliers as well as the customers. In India, e-commerce, as have informed before, is growing at a very rapid rate. And which are the major segments which is growing? If we look at here, a compilation from JP Morgan Global Insights report, it says that among all the e-commerce segment, the travel segment has the highest growth or percentage value of business transacted. This is followed by consumer electronics, that is almost comes to 16%. That means among all the goods, travel is preferred the most, followed by like for booking tickets, etc., followed by purchase of consumer electronics, and then apparels, followed by very few quantity, maybe going for grocery, other household goods, and health and beauty. And this is typically what's happening in India's e-commerce landscape. Now, we'll understand different types of e-commerce, and that is, we are separated into 6 different types. E-commerce business are generally categorized into B2B, B2C, C2C. That means it is a business to business. Business to business includes companies like IndiaMart or Exporters India. You can log on to their website, look at the products they have displayed. That is very easy for you to understand that what is the meaning of a B2B e-commerce segment. Amazon and Flipkart, which is a very familiar name to all of you, is into B2C segment. OLX, which is again a very familiar brand in India, is a consumer to consumer segment. Including the above 3, there are few more known as business to government, which you call as B2G. Most of you may not be familiar with these terminologies. We'll be discussing this one by one. The 5th one is government to business, and that is G2B, followed by government to citizen, that is G2C. So let us see what a B2B business is. A B2B e-commerce business involves the application of e-commerce in business transaction. It can always involve activities like material procurement, manufacturing, distribution, inventory, payment, etc. For example, if a company which is a manufacturer in China of a textile yarn is selling through Alibaba.com to a customer in India, we call such a transaction as B2B. There is next type of e-commerce, that is B2C. As we all know, this is the application of e-commerce where businesses sell the product directly to customer. That means you want to buy a Dell laptop from Flipkart. Here the customer can view and choose the product to order, and the organization directly dispatches the products to the customer. The next part is your C2C. Consumer to consumer is an e-commerce business where one consumer wants to sell his product, which he owns, it can be used product, to another customer by displaying it on a web portal. So, properties, maybe land, residential areas, cars, used motorcycles, used guitars, or even renting the room is all published on a website, and I guess you got it right, it is OLX. And people who want to buy the used property for economical reasons can always, or rather even students who want to buy for a short period of time a motorcycle can always go to these websites and purchase it at a much lower price. Next is the B2G, that is business to government. In a business to government e-business portal, the relationship between business and government agency is all about trading information and exchanging a vital information with the business organization. So there are websites which allow the business to pay taxes, and these businesses can avail other services, which is known as a B2G e-commerce business. G2B or government to business encompasses governments approach the business organization with the important information and services that they are providing, which businesses can avail. Normally, when the government wants to construct a high infrastructure or very expensive machinery, then they invite tenders. Inviting tenders or supporting an auction on a web-enabled portal is G2B e-commerce business. And lastly, we all know government reaches to us as individuals, which is known as G2C, which is government to citizen. This also has been termed as a separate domain known as e-governance, where G2C model website supports services like registration. I'm sure you all know what is Aadhaar, birth certificate, marriage certificate, death certificates, and even electoral photo identity card, which we always casually call it as voter's ID. This is known as government to citizen services. And finally, we will do a recap for how the e-commerce works. As we have seen in the previous topics that we covered under e-logistics, e-commerce has certain steps that the web has to follow for it to perform an efficient and effective function. So let's see what happens first. The first point is when the user, it can be a B2B or a B2C customer, he opens the website, wants to look into a product, carefully browses, looks at all the alternatives available, types search engine keywords, and finally he clicks on the product offered for sale on the site through his devices. His devices can be mobile phone or a laptop, any of the devices that he uses. That means these e-commerce web should be enabled to be used on those gadgets or devices. Once he clicks on the product, there's an instruction form that he needs to fill up and execute the payment. Well, we have already discussed what the different payment gateways available. It can be credit card, it can be debit card, it can be UPI, or it can be bank, or he can simply opt for cash on delivery. The third step, the customer's web browser then communicates back and forth with the server hosting the e-commerce website. This is what typically happens at the back end. And during this process of communication, data related to the customer's order is being forwarded to the inventory databases. And what are those databases? Those databases are merchant system that processes payment information and a bank computer. Well, this process actually ensures that the store inventory and the customer amount that is being paid by him are sufficient for the order to be processed. After this, the fifth step is once the store inventory and the customer payment both are cross-verified and found adequate, the order gets validated. That means if there is payment shortage or the customer has not made the payment, executed it, but the payment has not been processed, then he will immediately get a message stating the same. So the entire system needs to get validated. Only then the customer will be notified that the order has been successfully processed by the web server. I'm sure as an individual, whenever you have purchased, you will get the message either through email or on your mobile phone through SMS. So this happens typically only after the order is validated. And finally, this order details will be sent to the fulfillment centers with so many details, which we call as order details. That includes price, that includes quantity, any other product details with technical specification. Products may be very similar, but qualities may differ, and the date of delivery that needs to be dispatched to the customer. So we have already seen what happens at the fulfillment centers, what are fulfillment centers, and finally the order gets dispatched to the customer. So I'd like to wind up with reiterating the fact that regardless of the business model used by the e-retailers, third-party logistics for the physical movement of materials is always employed. This is very common that most of these e-retailers do not want to invest their sums into transportation. So this once again reflects the importance of transportation, the kind of investment and the risks involved here, and why transportation as a business domain has flourished in India so much. So with all this, we conclude the session about e-logistics, which is the Unit 4 part of warehouse and transportation. Thank you.